A visit to Granada for the Muslim traveler evokes mixed feelings. On the one hand, there's this pride, this admiration for this technologically advanced Muslim state that was centuries ahead of its time, while the rest of Europe languished in what was called the Dark Ages. You could find the biggest libraries in Andalusia, and the health service was better than what we call the National Health Service in the UK today. This state was a state where the sciences flourished, the arts flourished, and the evidence of the success of the state remains, and the tourist can really immerse himself into this. The history, the monuments, the artifacts are there. But on the other hand, there's the sadness for the Muslim traveler when he or she visits Granada, because ultimately this concept, this project failed. Why did it fail? Similar problems that we have today: greed for power, over obsession with luxury, infighting. All this while the Christian North were organizing, were preparing, were determined. And ultimately, the Christian North gradually ate at the Muslim state until this continuity of Islam in the Iberian Peninsula, which lasted 700, 800 years, ended. Now, this was not an occupation. We could say a lot of Christians and Muslims believe the Muslim presence in Spain was an occupation, and they look at it through the lens of an occupation. But far from the truth, when the Muslims first arrived in Spain, they were invited by a count whose daughter was violated by a king, Roderick. The Muslims were aided by this count. The Muslims were welcomed and aided by other Visigothic nobles. And the Muslims who settled in Andalusia intermarried with the local population. There was a fusion of culture. There was a fusion of Arabic, Berber, and local Spaniard culture. If we want to term the Muslim presence in Spain as an occupation, then we've got to consider Brazilians, Latin Americans as occupiers of South America today. Obviously, we don't. We understand that they have a mixed Spanish background, a background that includes fusion with the black African slaves, with the native South American Indian people. And of course with the Portuguese in the case of Brazil. So if an Andalusian Muslim from that period is not a native to the land, then we got to say that a Brazilian today is not a Brazilian, an Argentinian today is not an Argentine. So it's really ridiculous. What you're looking at right now is a madrasa. There was a madrasa for learning of the Quran. Obviously, it was turned into a monastery or something to that effect. This room with this architecture was boarded off, and that's why it was preserved. So you can see the original foundation of the building as well there. It's just beautiful. And on the upstairs floor is a functioning church at the moment. Now, not far from this, just across the road from this building, I don't have the image here, but there's a university, and the university was set up after the Christian conquest of Andalusia. It was set up to forcibly convert Muslims into Christianity. So this was the consequence of the failure of the breakdown of the Muslim state, that whatever promises were made, still Muslims were forced to convert to Christianity. They were given classes that they had to attend. So it was basically conversion or death. The rich people managed to flee, could have made their way to North Africa or even to Turkey, while Jewish people fled and were given shelter as well in both North Africa and in Turkey. but the poor had no choice. Basically, it was death or conversion. Some of them converted, but maintained their Islam in secret, uh, while others, as generations passed, became real Christian. But even though they were real Christian, they were still persecuted and still ultimately pushed out of the country. Now, on a bright note, if you look at this little cafe here, this cafe is run by, mashallah, by a Spaniard Muslim. Uh, Support him if you go there. You won't miss it. I don't know the address, but you're not going to miss it. And if you look at the souk, it's just very similar to what you see in Fez, or especially Fez in Morocco, shall I say.
This is a
except
souk.
much cleaner. In fact,
Very
the
much
craft
like
there
those
is
you'll find in Fez.
every 90% of it is made in Morocco,
In
actually.
Marrakesh.
And these are mostly
Much
Moroccan
cleaner.
shops, or Egyptian and so on. They're mostly Moroccan. On the positive side, we visited 3 functioning mosques in Granada. One of it overlooks the Alhambra Palace, so it's on a hill across from there. Um, and there were 2 other smaller mosques as well. In one of the mosques, I met a Spaniard who reverted to Islam a few years back. Um, Funny enough, he's from the north of Spain, so he's not even from the south of Spain, which, where the people are actually, a lot of them descended from Muslims. So, alhamdulillah, I mean, there's a small Muslim presence. Mostly
Maybe
it's
sometimes when you
immigrants, some reverts to Islam, and children of reverts as well. They're not necessarily just first generation reverts. So it's a small population. Inshallah, may Allah give them barakah. So this is supposed to be like a travel blog, but when you visit somewhere like Granada, it inevitably becomes a history lesson in a small way. About the city for Muslims as travelers, I would say there's lots of halal restaurants, so delicious food. Again, portions are very small.
It's a
Okay,
functioning
just for a
masjid,
moment,
new one.
this is a functioning mosque here that
Men's entrance,
you can
ladies
see in the
entrance.
video. So we prayed our
There's
salah
even a
there.
lift
Alhamdulillah, it's got a
inside
lift in
there.
there as well. Yeah, going back to the food, yeah, small portions, expensive, but good variety. You're gonna find lots of curios, lots of stuff to buy. Most of them made in Morocco. You're probably just gonna pay about 5 times more than you'd pay in Morocco. There's a few items that are made in Spain. For hijabis, I think Granada would be fine. I don't think it'll be a big problem. There's lots of Muslim visitors. For people who wear niqab, on the other hand, there's still some stares. Still, we had a lady making a funny comment at my wife. So better than Almeria, better than most parts of Spain, but still you will encounter some ignorant people. Okay, so this is one of the restaurants. Actually, in this restaurant, my wife had a bad experience. She overheard the waiter, Muslim Moroccan waiter, saying to the other person, questioning why she came in there, because of her niqab, and they didn't want to offend their, let's say, European clientele. So she did challenge him on it, but he pretended as if he hadn't said it. And then we left it at that. So that's sad. That your fellow Muslim people sometimes they just want to do everything to please the European people, when maybe perhaps the European people themselves might be a little bit more open-minded than them. So you can see the Granada for kids. I would say it depends on their age. If you can prepare them in advance, talk to them about the history, maybe play some videos on YouTube about the history of Muslims in Spain, then they may appreciate it. My kids enjoyed it. I think they enjoyed it much more than they did Almeria, even though Almeria has a beach. So I think, yeah, if they have the background, then they're gonna appreciate it. If they're little kids, obviously, maybe not so much. This is a restaurant. We had some lovely food in here as well, mashallah. And even just normal houses in Granada, you'll find houses with like a what we today call like a Moroccan architecture. But they're really old. Some of them, not this particular one, but there's a few. Couldn't find the photos. They're really old, and even got some Arabic inscriptions on them. So these are not tourist sites. It's just museums. Just walking around, you'll find a few surprises. Alhamdulillah. So I overall recommend you coming to visiting Granada and enjoy yourselves. Thanks for listening.